You've heard of ChatGPT, you've heard of OpenAI, but you probably haven't heard the most important people story behind the AI boom. Imagine the AI world as the NBA. Everyone's watching the scoreboard, but almost nobody is watching the moment when the star player quietly walks into the locker room and never comes back. What if I told you the single biggest move in the AI wars wasn't GPT-4 or Sora or any product launch? It was one guy quietly walking out of OpenAI and a small group of elite researchers following him out the door. In this video, I'll show you how Dario Amadei's exit from OpenAI triggered a brain drain, why some of the best minds behind GPT-3 are now building Claude at Anthropic instead, and what that tells us about where the smartest people in AI think the future is going. If you care about AI, and if you trade AI-exposed stocks, this is the talent flow you cannot ignore. Who is Dario Amadei, and why does his resignation matter so much? Dario is not a hype merchant. He's a Princeton-trained scientist and former VP of research at OpenAI. Think of him as the chief architect of a skyscraper. He's not laying every brick, but he decides where the foundations go, how high you build, and how you stop the whole thing from collapsing in an earthquake. He joined OpenAI in 2016, and over the next few years he led research teams that helped build GPT-2 and set the direction that led into GPT-3. Inside the company, he wasn't just another researcher. He was effectively the person steering how the frontier models were built and how alignment and safety were integrated into those models. So when that guy walks out, it's not a normal resignation. It's a flare going up over the entire AI industry. Why he walked out. Most people assume big exits like this are about money, ego, or title. But if you listen to Dario's own explanations, that's not what he says. The split was about direction. Inside OpenAI, the center of gravity was shifting toward scale it faster, ship it, monetize it, move. Picture a race car team. One side says, add more turbo, push the engine, we need to win the race now. The other side says, if we don't upgrade the brakes and the roll cage, we might win one race and crash the car forever. Dario and his camp were the brakes and roll cage people. Their view was simple. If you're going to build models that start to look like general-purpose thinking engines, safety and interpretability have to be baked in from day one, not bolted on later as a patch. He eventually realized he had two options. Spend years fighting inside OpenAI for a more cautious, safety-first direction, or walk away and build the lab he thought the world actually needed. He chose to walk. The brain drain. Who followed him? Here's where this story goes from one guy quit to holy sh. Dario didn't just leave alone. A whole cluster of top OpenAI people followed him out. This wasn't one player demanding a trade. This was half the starting lineup walking into a new locker room. Let me give you the short, punchy version of who came with him. First, his sister, Daniela Amadei. At OpenAI, she was VP of Safety and Policy. She joins Dario and becomes president of Anthropic. If Dario is the chief architect, Daniela is the COO who keeps the entire construction site running. Next, Jared Kaplan. He's a theoretical physicist and one of the core authors of the famous scaling laws work. Those scaling laws are basically the recipe book for giant neural networks. They tell you how big to make the model, how much data to feed it, and how much compute to spend if you want the thing to keep getting smarter. Then you have Sam McCandlish. At OpenAI, he was a lead researcher on scaling and training. Think of him as the head chef in the kitchen. He doesn't just know the recipe, he knows exactly how to run a massive kitchen so every dish comes out on time. At Anthropic, he becomes a co-founder and effectively owns the how do we train Claude-class models at massive scale. Then there's Tom Brown. He led the engineering for GPT-3 at OpenAI. He literally ran the team that trained GPT-3. He's the person who took the theory and turned it into a real, running system on thousands of GPUs. He also leaves and becomes a co-founder at Anthropic. And it doesn't stop there. You've got people like Chris Olah, one of the most respected names in mechanistic interpretability, the guy trying to read the thoughts inside neural networks like an MRI for AI brains. And Jack Clark, who is a key policy and communications figure at OpenAI, helping translate all this insane tech into language governments and the public could actually understand. They also join the Anthropic founding cluster. Depending on how you count, roughly a dozen or more researchers and leaders eventually move from OpenAI into Anthropic. This isn't one employee rage quitting. This is a coordinated migration of the brains behind GPT-3 and a lot of OpenAI's early safety work. If you think of OpenAI as the Golden State Warriors of AI, Dario didn't just leave as a role player. He walked out like Steph Curry, and then took Clay, Draymond, and half the coaching staff with him. Anthropic's vision, Claude as the other GPT. So what did they do with all that talent? In 2021, Dario, Daniela, and this ex-OpenAI cluster launched Anthropic as a public benefit corporation. Their pitch was simple. We're going to build the most capable models and the most steerable, predictable ones. Their flagship is the Claude family of models. If you've used Claude 3 or later, those systems are built by many of the same minds that gave you GPT-3, but now under Dario's rules of safety and alignment. Anthropic leans into ideas like constitutional AI. Instead of relying purely on ad hoc human feedback, you give the model a written constitution of principles, almost like a rule book or a company handbook for an AI mind, and you use that to shape its behavior during training. In plain English, they're trying to tattoo the values into the model's brain while it's growing, instead of just putting a content filter band-aid over its mouth at the end. And big money noticed. Google, Amazon, and other giants have poured billions into Anthropic to get access to this alternative stack. So we now have a split. On one side, OpenAI, backed heavily by Microsoft. On the other side, Anthropic, backed by Amazon, Google, and others. It's like watching two different super teams form in the same league, each backed by a different billionaire owner. What happened to OpenAI's bench? So did Dario completely gut OpenAI? Did he just steal the brain? The answer is no, but he did pull out a very specific organ. He pulled out a huge chunk of their early research and safety leadership. Over the next few years, there's a broader talent exodus from OpenAI. People leaving not just for Anthropic, but also for xAI, for new safety-focused labs like Safe Superintelligence, and for other rivals. A lot of coverage describes this as a talent exodus, especially in safety and alignment roles. At the same time, OpenAI still has a very strong bench, plus almost unmatched access to capital, compute, and distribution through Microsoft. So OpenAI is dead is the wrong take. Think of it more like this. The league's best team lost several all-stars, but they still have a deep roster, home court advantage, and an owner willing to spend whatever it takes. Meanwhile, Anthropic is now the single biggest concentration of ex-OpenAI elite talent, particularly around safety, interpretability, and large-scale model training. If OpenAI is the giant aircraft carrier, Anthropic is the elite special forces unit that broke off to run its own mission. That concentration is what makes the Dario story so important. Why this matters for you? So why should you care about this talent story? If you're just using AI tools, this is your answer. Follow the talent. When people like Dario, Kaplan, McCandlish, Brown, and Olah all decide they need a new lab to build AI the way they think is safe, that's a strong signal about both risk and opportunity. If you're trading or investing, this matters even more. You're not just betting on products like ChatGPT or Claude. You're betting on talent flows. Who has the best brains? Who has the strongest safety posture? Who has the most runway in terms of capital and partners? On one side, you have OpenAI plus Microsoft, world-class distribution, huge capital, and massive product velocity. On the other side, you have Anthropic, a concentrated cluster of ex-OpenAI research and safety talent, backed by Amazon, Google, and others that want a competitive stack. In upcoming videos, I'm going to break down how this talent war maps onto actual ticker symbols, which public companies give you exposure to the OpenAI Microsoft axis, which ones give you exposure to Anthropic, and how I'm thinking about swing trading these over the next 6 to 18 months. If you found this breakdown useful, if you like following the people and the talent flows, not just the headlines, hit subscribe, drop a like, and let me know in the comments. Are you more bullish on the OpenAI Microsoft side of the war or the Anthropic Amazon/Google side? I read every comment and I'll use your answers to decide which AI names I deep dive into next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.